everybody. My name is Melody Richardson, and I am Governor of Regions 3 and 4 for Eta Kappa Nu. And I'm excited to introduce Nehad El Sharif. He's the founder and president of Monkey Bar Technologies, a Canadian company specializing in research and development and engineering services. Nehad is a licensed professional electrical engineer with experience in hardware and software design, product development, certification, and electrical safety. He's a senior member of IEEE and served on the executive board of the IEEE Industry Application Society and the IEEE Standards Association Standards Board. He also contributes to safety standards through NFPA, CSA, and UL. Nehad has received multiple recognitions, including the 2024 IEEE Excellence in Prevention Through Design Award and a First Place Prize Paper Award in 2023. He holds 2 patents and also teaches at University of Saskatchewan. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Nehad El Sharif.
Well, thank you so much, and I guess welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm excited to talk about, hopefully you're as excited as me, talk about innovation because it's a very important topic. And yes, we hear about innovation all the time. So hopefully after this session will help you to get a better idea of what this is all about. Hopefully help to maybe start thinking in a more innovative way. So in general speaking, innovation is a function or a specific function of entrepreneurship. We always hear about entrepreneurship, innovation. Sometimes people accidentally or mistakenly think that innovation is the more of an inspiration, which is not very true. Innovation is hard work, it's systematic, and it's purposeful. And it's innovation, in short, is because innovation and entrepreneurship are very tied into each other. Innovation is the way that innovators or entrepreneurs can create value and benefit humanity. So I like this saying by Peter Drucker, and if you're not familiar with Peter Drucker, he's considered the founder of the modern management theory, and his research has revolutionized the way that corporates and businesses in general operate. So he said that innovation is a specific instrument of entrepreneurship, the act that endows resources with a no capacity to create wealth. And you can see that innovation and entrepreneurship are very interrelated. And maybe I should explain briefly the difference between innovation or innovator and entrepreneurship or entrepreneur. So innovation always comes first. It's innovation, or an innovator is coming up with something new, no idea, no product, no service, a different way of doing things. And then entrepreneurship or an entrepreneur is the person who would turn this into a business idea or something that people can benefit from. Because if you have a great innovation or an innovator invents something really great and you don't turn it into an entrepreneurial endeavor or like a business, then it would probably stay in your basement. You're not going to go anywhere. People won't benefit from it. So I'll be using entrepreneurs and innovators interchangeably, but in general, innovators could be entrepreneurship, but it's not necessarily the case. Sometimes someone invents something, but they have to partner with another person who was more entrepreneurial to turn it into a business case. But let's just talk in general that in many cases, innovators could be, take their idea and turn it into something beneficial or helpful, a business in this sense. So innovation, you may have heard this before, it's the lifeblood of industry. And oftentimes in industry, we talk about, companies will talk about innovate or die. If you're not innovative, you don't come up with no ideas, no products, no services, then eventually you will die, right? You can't just keep doing what you're doing forever. And along those lines, I have 3 questions. It's hard to kind of I always like to have a two-way conversation. Usually it's much easier to do this in person, but because we're doing this virtually, it'll be hard. So just take a few seconds and think of these 3 questions, and I will give you the answers right away. My first question is, for today's Fortune 500 companies, how many of them you think were around 25 years ago? Just a percentage, whatever the percentage you think of. And my next question is, statistically speaking, 87% of companies would stall during their journey. just have, it kind of it's typical you face as a company, or even us as individuals, face some hardship or some challenges. So out of those 87%, what's the percentage of the company you think they can, come back and overcome those challenges out of those, 87%? And then in today's major corporations, think of all the big companies, corporates that we have these today. Again, what's the percentage? How many you would think that they will still be around of those major corporations we have today after 25 years? So I'd say 2050, right? How many of what big companies, corporations we have today would still be around by 2050? So maybe give you a couple seconds to think about it. Just guess. And let me give you the answers. So only 25% of today's Fortune 500 companies existed. This means that 76% of those companies disappeared, that they were Fortune 500 25 years ago. Only 24% made it, less than quarter, almost quarter of the companies made it after 25 years. Only 11% of the companies can recover from the adversity or the hardship that they faced during their journey. And 1/3, this is of course the expectation, which is not futures, no one knows what's going to happen in the future, but the expectation is only 1/3 of today's major corporations will be around or still exist in 2050, after 25 years. So it kind of shows you, so these statistics would show you the importance of innovation, because I would argue that those companies that in the gray that haven't survived were just not innovative enough. And just give you an importance or significance of innovation, I looked this up, and the numbers are not, like the different expectation, because it's future, but it's not just the percentage. I think the concept itself. So most people would say that roughly 10 to 15% of the jobs of our kids don't exist today. They haven't been created yet, which is kind of, if you think of it, there is roughly, within the next 25 years, by 2050, we still have a society to create 90% or 85% of the jobs that will be in existence in 25 years. And it's kind of, the numbers are staggering, but I start thinking about it, maybe even our short lifetime, 5-10 years ago, there was no such thing as influencers or TikTokers or just people just going their businesses, just making, going live and promoting products or something. So it's just like a short time thing. Drone operators, I don't know, you name it. There's so many things. I don't want to waste too much time, but if you start thinking, there are so many jobs today that maybe 5-10 years ago they just never existed. No one really dreamed of, but now they're just jobs, and people are, making money out of those jobs. So this is all driven by innovation and just coming up with mainly new ways to do things. So if we talk about innovation, there are two types of innovation. There's incremental innovation and radical or disruptive. Incremental, as the name suggests, it's improving something existing. And I have a couple examples here, like Intel Core i7. I know they have higher ones, better processors now, but just i7 was an improvement over the i6, and i8 would be better, and so forth. So they improving something existing. It's not something drastic. Same thing with the iPod on the screen, which doesn't exist anymore, but back in the day it was an improvement over MP3 players, whatever. And then for the guys on the call, razors, this is, I think it's a Gillette one that they came up with, this double razor thing, just makes it easier or better to shave, whatever. So again, it was just that improvement on something that we had. On the other hand, to the right hand side, disruptive is something that we never had before. So the coffee capsules, when they came out, there was just something completely new. Just had nothing to do with the way that we made coffee. iTunes, if you remember this from back in the day, I think it's still around. It was a big revolution in the music industry, because it allowed artists to sell one track. Back in the day, you would sell like an album or a record, right? Which is something like, why would I pay for 10 songs and only want one, right? So this concept was not in existence until iTunes came into, it was introduced by Apple, and all of a sudden now you can, as a you can just buy one. You pay for one song like 99 cents or something for one specific song, instead of getting a full track, buying a full track for the whole, for a specific song, for just one or two songs. So it's just a different way of doing business. And bottom there's like a Herceptin, I think it's called. It's just like a medication for breast cancer, which again revolutionized the treatment of breast cancer. That's something we didn't have before. And there are many types of innovation. Like if you think of, like, again, I want to ask, like, what kind of innovation, how can types you may think of innovation, or how can we innovate? But I'll just give you the answer right away. There are different ways of innovating in business or in industry. So I'll just go one by one. So first thing is selling. A big example of innovation in selling your products or selling your services is e-commerce, right? Like this is an industry that was just created. It changed the way that we sell products. Now, instead of having a bricks and mortar or physical shop or physical store you go to buy something, now you just go online on your phone, computer, laptop, whatever, and tablet, if you may, and purchase whatever you want. So obviously it's a new way of selling products, completely innovative way. Innovation in tools, like one of the things, because my electrical background, tools, because of shock hazard, they came up with battery powered tools, so you don't have to run long not power cores, long cables and strip hazard and so forth. So innovating in tools is very, very important, like double insulation tools to prevent shock and so forth. And then market innovation. This is another interesting idea. Just like simply means creating a new market that never existed. And the one example I really like to share or use is the baking soda. Baking soda is such a basic product, and the maker back in the marketing team got together and tried to expand their markets, and just baking soda is baking soda. But instead of trying to sell more baking soda, they came up with new markets, new usages for baking soda. So now you see baking soda used as a disinfection or for personal hygiene, for fire extinguisher, and it's used as a cleaning agent for paint and rust. So they created new markets, new applications for their product that was very basic, like baking soda just for baking, right? All of a sudden, they created new markets, which was very innovative on the marketing end. It's the same product, but they innovated around marketing. Technology and product, I would say it's the easiest thing. Like, look around all the new technology we have, like your cell phone, the laptop, even the internet, this platform we're using to communicate. We're anywhere in the world, right? It's all new technology, new innovative technology that made things that were not possible, not even imaginable back in the day. Now we can they're just like our daily life. Innovating new solutions. And this would be something like coming up with like apps. All the apps we have is no solution. Back in the day, people used to spend a lot of time doing their taxes manually on a spreadsheet or a piece of paper. Now we have programs that you just, like tax programs like TurboTax, so there's a list of them, right? You can just go online and do your taxes very quickly, because it's a solution that is an innovative solution to help you perform something that was taken so long from you. You can also innovate in business model, and the business model innovation, the great example that we're all probably using is rideshare, right? Uber, Lyft, you name it. Back in the day, they just had to get a cab, taxi, or just get a rental car, whatever. All of a sudden, there's a new business model that was innovated to allow, to connect to an app. Someone who wants a ride with a driver, and of course, I'm sure everyone pretty much used that service before. And lastly, last but not least, the process innovation. You can always innovate in the process. Probably the 20th century biggest example is assembly line. Just coming up with how to streamline your manufacturing. Coming up with the idea of Henry Ford gets credit for the assembly line. And if another more recent example is directional drilling or horizontal drilling. Back in the day, when you're drilling for oil or minerals, you just can go, like, I guess, vertical, right? But with the advancement technology, then now they're able to go directional or like sideways, horizontal drilling, I think it's called, which allows you to reach, I guess, minerals and mine things that you were not being able to had you been only able to drill vertically. So it's like different ways of innovation. It's not just coming up with a new product or new idea. There's different ways of innovate, like I just shared with you. And there's always room to come up with an idea in one of those applications to become more innovative. And I'm sure that many of you heard this saying before: necessity is the mother of invention. So it's really hard to innovate just like because you want to be an innovator. Usually there's a driver, and what drives innovation is a need. There's always a need to drive innovation. There's an English proverb which sums it very nicely: whenever there is a will, when there's a will, there is a way. So you have a need, then you're determined to meet this need or those needs, and then just gonna figure out a way to innovate and come up with a new idea. And this is a saying: simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication, by Leonardo da Vinci. And I really can't think of a better statement to describe innovation. Innovation, in essentially, or most of the time, is something simple. It's just like this, like once you see it, it's like, oh, aha, how come I, like a dog kind of thing. How come I never thought of this? It's so obvious, so simple, but that's what makes it so pretty. It's just because it's so simple, and it's something that you think, oh, I should have thought of this, but I'm sure I encounter this all the time. How come I never thought of this? It's so simple, but it's not as simple to come up with the idea from something that did not exist. And Steve Jobs, I'm sure all of us know Steve Jobs. He once said that innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not a threat, which is very important. I'll talk about some of the traits of innovators. It's innovators usually, or even entrepreneurs. Again, I said they kind of sometimes they go hand in hand or interchangeably can be used. And if you're an innovator or an entrepreneur, you have this ability to turn any adverse situation into something that is beneficial. Like, it's not a threat, it's not something negative, it's an opportunity that you can use to innovate or come up with a new idea, a new way of doing things, right? And I just like this comic, and I wanted to share it with everyone. It just, I thought it's just amazing, like look at the guy to the left and the guy to the right. This is just like an adverse situation, rain obviously, and just like simply, just like how those two individuals think differently, right? You just turn an adverse situation into something beneficial, or something that you can use to create value and come up with a new idea or new application and so forth. So moving on, I would like to maybe talk about briefly the sources of innovation, like how to find innovation in general. And there are 7 sources of innovation. The innovation can be external to an organization or a company, or internal. So I'll talk in general about those 7 sources of innovation. And the first one is serendipity. It's just like this aha moment that's like, oh, just hits me. This was something I could maybe come up with a product or solution or service to solve a problem or address an unmet need, right? So it's usually this aha moment. And if I'm a big Friends fan, so if you kind of realize, if you know the show Friends, it's from the 90s, a little bit old. I was in my high school, I was watching this. And like sudden realization of something happens, and all of a sudden it's kind of you're I guess the light bulb comes off when you realize how obvious it was. So this is like the aha moment. And there's so many examples in history about aha moments. One of them is this gentleman, George de Mestral. I don't think most of you would know him. I didn't know him until I started doing my research when I was putting those slides together. And he's a Swiss engineer, was a Swiss engineer, and he gets credit for inventing or creating the company Velcro. And all of us heard of Velcro. Like to the right hand side, this like the fastener, like the hook and loop fastener, and just like few of the application of this this technology or this invention, hook and loop fastener. It's pretty much everywhere. Look around, use it everywhere with clothes and shoes, and even army and everywhere, like wearables these days, right? So it's like he invented or started this brand name, the company Velcro, which was very popular, still to this day very, very popular. And if you look at the history of what happened, like how did he come up with this invention? Back in 1941, he took a walk in the Alps, and he kept wondering why those burdock seeds kept getting clung on his wooden coat and socks. Even like he had his dog Mila with him, and it's the same. Those seeds kept plugging on her as well. So he started thinking, this is obviously not a nice situation. It's very adverse, right, and annoying, I would say. But he started thinking and turned the situation into a business that we all know, and just share some of the application with you instead of just complaining about it. He came up with the idea of Velcro, and rest is history. And this is like, I like this slide. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it's just like an example of the aha moment kind of thing, and just kind of shows you the different ages and different aha moments for people, celebrities, people that we know. Maybe I'll highlight a couple for the sake of time. So WhatsApp, many of us use WhatsApp, and it's like the inventor of WhatsApp, which most people don't know his name. I didn't know his name, Jan Koum, and he invented WhatsApp because he couldn't call his father in Ukraine. He just tried to get in touch with his father, couldn't, so he just came up with solved the problem, a WhatsApp application to be able to contact his father. IKEA, we all know IKEA, and the founder of IKEA was so upset because he couldn't fit his table, the table that he purchased in his car, and he had to take off the legs. So he came up with the idea of IKEA, right? And so forth. Maybe I'll just pick another third example. Let's Chip Wilson, Lululemon, for the ladies on the call, right? It was just simple. The Chip noticed that ladies perform yoga, but they don't have special pants to wear. So he just came up with Lululemon, and the rest of history. And the rest is history. And if you go through the list, it's all the same thing. It's just like this aha moment, something that people realize how to do things differently in life to help other people. The second source of innovation is unexpected occurrences, something that happens by complete accident. And I'm going to use two examples here, like Viagra and Botox, to kind of give you an example of how unexpected occurrences could end up with a great innovative solution, right? So Viagra, most of us know heard of Viagra before, but the story of Viagra is very interesting. So Pfizer, when they first tested Viagra, it was tested for hypertension, high blood pressure, and angina, which is a symptom of ischemic heart disease, right? This was the reason that they started testing Viagra. But during the testing, they noticed a side effect that became very interesting, and they repositioned their product. And now, as we know, Viagra is mainly used for addressing or curing erectile dysfunction, which is something that just happened completely by accident during their clinical trial. They found out a side effect that was even more important to them than the original reason that they invented or started with thinking of marketing Viagra for. So they start marketing Viagra for erectile dysfunction. And numbers don't lie. So to give you an idea of how big it was, within 3 months of launching Viagra, Pfizer made $400 million. And their sales over the following 2 decades were close to $1.8 billion. The only reason that their sales start tapering off is because after 2 decades, like 20 years, your patent protection expires, and then this is when the generics kicks in. But I think Viagra made quite a good business or money for Pfizer, right? But I could have probably been doing the same thing had it not just been they're running out of their protection, and there are now so many generics that will do the same thing. But this is like, in my mind, a great example on coincidence, right? Something that was not planned, and all of a sudden it just became a blockbuster, right? Botox is the same thing. Like, I'm sure all of us now heard or know of Botox and what it's used for. It's usually for cosmetics, right? But if you trace the history of Botox, it has nothing to do with Botox, with cosmetics. So like in 1820, when Botox was identified as a toxin, it's a toxic material, no one used it. And then in the 20s, so it's like almost 100 years later, it was used by the canned food industry to prevent botulism, which is like food poisoning. And then 1977, they start using it for treating strabismus, which their eyes are not aligned. And almost 20 years later, 1997, they just found out that it could be used for cosmetics. And again, there's its history. Now Botox is just like the standard for cosmetics and all this plastic surgery, right? Again, it took from 1820 to late 1990s to figure out the usage of it. But before that, no one ever thought of it. And again, it was a complete coincidence that they realized Botox could be used in cosmetics. The third source of innovation is something they call incongruities, like something out of place. It's like this just doesn't feel right. Something doesn't look right. And one example, and I'm sure all of us have been through this, is this picture there: long lineups, grocery stores, right? Sometimes you're so busy and you spend more time waiting to scan and pay for your grocery items than the time that you took for shopping itself, right? And this is just inconvenient, especially if you have one or two, a couple items, right? And you see that sometimes some stores would have, like, if you have less than 12 items, 10 items, you can use kind of express lanes. But someone noticed that this is something wrong, something out of place. And you know what happened? They came up with self-checkout, right? So now you don't have to wait in line. You can just go to the machine and do your own thing, and you just kind of speed up the process, especially if you have a couple items you're going to need to wait in line with those other customers with a big cart full of items, right? The fourth source of innovation is efficient process and efficiency. You kind of see a process that is not very efficient and try to improve it, innovate the process. One of the great examples is FedEx. We all know FedEx. Now it's kind of FedEx was like a pioneer of overnight shipping. And if you trace the story of FedEx, it goes back to 1965, and the father, and Mr. Fred Smith, he is considered the father of overnight delivery business. He had this idea of FedEx, and you probably won't believe this, but back in '65, this gentleman was an undergrad Yale student, and he wrote a term paper on on this business model for shipping, overnight shipping of time-sensitive components like medicine, computer parts and electronics. And believe it or not, he almost failed his class because his professors didn't really believe that it didn't make sense to them, right? But he's an entrepreneur and innovator. He saw things differently than all of us. And what he did is, after he graduated, he just didn't make, the grade. I think he got a D or something, almost failed. But he didn't make the grade and the opinion of his professors to deter him from pursuing his passion and his business. And again, we all know FedEx. Now there's a different, I don't know how many other services out there that's just imitating FedEx. But again, Fred Smith gets to be the inventor of this idea by, again, making the process more efficient. Next is market shift. And this is usually a change in situation. It's a change, and the market shifting could shift you during or for different reasons. It could be legal changes or some regulation changes, law change, consumer behavior changing as well, maybe economics. There's different ways of market shifting. And I'll give you a few examples on how a market change in the market or your shift in changing situation could lead to great innovations, even from our adversarial cases. And 9/11, I don't need to comment much on 9/11. Everyone knows what 9/11 was. And of course, the one big impact of 9/11 was a drastic change or a redesigning the whole airport security, right? And one of the innovations that came out of this was, which not all of us like it, but body scanners. Before 9/11, there was no such thing as body scanner. Now we have like metal detectors, and they're not as good as body scanners. And now they have 3D scanners. I'm TSA pre-checked because I travel a lot. And I don't have to take out my laptop or liquid out of my bag, because now they have 3D scanners, so you don't need to take those items out. The colored 3D scanner, the new technology, can just scan it, and you don't have to take it out anymore, right? So this is, again, and not a very, I'd say, sad situation, but innovation was a result of this situation, like 9/11. Another example, this is more a Canadian example, but cannabis, right, like weed or marijuana, was legalized in Canada on October 17th. And you might be wondering why I would remember the date, just simply because it's my birthday, and just happened to be on my 40th birthday. Canada decided to change the regulation and make cannabis legal, and you can just go to any store and buy it, right? And I don't consume cannabis, but it just a joke became in me and my friends that, man, this is just a sign. You just have to start, right? It's like it's now legal in the whole country, and they picked out of the 365 days, they picked my birthday, and it was my 40th birthday, the big 4-0, like big 40. So yeah, so it was just a joke. But my point is, regulation change. Now all of a sudden, there are businesses, there are more innovation in this space, the cannabis space, that was before October 17th, that magic date, 2018, I think it was. There was no, it wasn't possible. Now it's legal. There's a change in the regulations, a new law that allowed this to happen. Next is, outside, let me again ask you this question. There's like 3 different industries on the screen. The top left corner is organic food. The right corner is electric vehicles, and then the bottom is wind power, right? Renewable energy, if you may. And if you think, what is the common thing between all 3 industries? The actual common thing is sustainability, environmental friendly industries, right? And the results, that the reason for those innovative industries, or this relatively new industry, is a change in customer behavior. People now, or we in general as a society, are more aware of, or more care more about the environment and sustainability. So without this shift in customer behavior, like back in the 60s or 50s or even 70s, people didn't really consider this a big thing. So we didn't have electric vehicles, we didn't have renewable energy, we didn't have organic food, right? But because of the change in customer behaviors, this opened up the door for new industries, new innovations to kick in. The next source of innovation is demographic trends. I think it's number 6 now. I think we're up to 6, or maybe 5. I can't remember. So demographic trends. Children obesity is a big problem, is an epidemic in the U.S. And again, this would open up doors for innovation, come up with solution to this problem, to help the healthcare professionals and society in general overcome this problem. Another big problem, again, and this is worldwide, but mainly in the U.S., and just focusing on the U.S. here, is like baby boomers, right? Those who were born between 1946 and 1964. If you think of it, many of them started already retiring, and there are more to come soon. And the expected number is 79.9 million, roughly, let's say 80 million baby boomers in the U.S. And once they retire, there'll be a big void in the workforce. And as those individuals start aging, this would stress an already stressed healthcare system. So again, there's always, because demographic changes, there is opportunities for innovators and entrepreneurs to come in and come up with innovative solutions to address this problem, and maybe relieve the healthcare system. Robotics is another example of innovation, and I guess taking advantage or observing demographic changes. And you would like robotics now is very common, but back in the day, you may remember, if you go back to the history of robotics, Japan was the leading country in that space. And the reason Japan was a leader in robotics wasn't anything other than the reason that in Japan there was a demographic change, and there was not that much interest in blue-collar jobs. So most people were kind of moving away or shying away from blue-collar jobs. So the Japanese, I guess the society, started to find alternatives for blue-collar jobs, and that's why they were leaders. It's not the case anymore, but Japan for many, many years were the leaders in robotics, just because there was some demographic changes in Japan, and they were trying to address this demographic change. The next source, this is an interesting one, is perception. And changing people's perception is interesting because it doesn't alter the facts, but it changes their meaning. And let me give you an example to kind of clarify what I mean by this. So on the screen here, I'm sure all of us have seen this before. This is like what's the name? The line, the barricades, like I forgot the name, they built retractable built barrier or Q barrier. I was trying to think of the word retractable, right? And you see them everywhere, right? Like airports is a big place. Sometimes you see them like, like stores or when it's busy or something. But what is the history? If you go back to the history, this was a Disney invention. And the reason for this, Disney, they realized that if you have a lineup that goes like a mile, people waiting for like some of their to start one of their activities at Disney, it just would make people shy away because you're not going to wait for like 2-3 hours, right? Waiting to start one of their Holocaust or whatever the thing is. So what Disney has decided to do is to start having those like snake lines, like they even call them Disney snake lines. So it changes people's perception. It doesn't look like it's a mile long line or a queue. And it obviously it looks it has the perception it's shorter, but it's not. Like again, it doesn't alter the fact, but it changes the meaning. It makes you feel that it's not as bad as it is. So probably encourage parents to wait with their kids for the next ride, for the next activity that Disney has, right? But if you imagine if this was a straight line, like a long queue that spanned over a mile or maybe 2 miles, most people would just walk away, right? So this was like a way that a solution that Disney came up with to change people's perception and make them, be more willing to wait in the line, a zigzag or a snake line, because it doesn't look as long or as bad as just like a long straight line that could, or a long queue that could span over a couple miles. This number 10, right? So the last one is new knowledge, which is very obvious. Is we have new knowledge, it's no innovation, right? And many people don't know the gentleman in the picture. His name is Sir Tim Berners-Lee, and Sir Tim Berners-Lee is the inventor of the World Wide Web, WWW. So you see the picture, you don't know him, but he's considered the father by many people, the father of the internet, because he invented the World Wide Web. Like everywhere you go on the internet, it's www. something, right? So this gentleman, most people don't know him, is the one who invented this because of the new knowledge that became available and helped him and his team to come up with the new invention, which now what we call the internet. So moving on from the sources of the innovation to the culture, and culture is very important. Like, what is the culture that would help innovation? Culture that would allow or enable innovation. And again, I'm quoting Mr. Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker talked about culture, and he said that culture eats strategy all the time or for breakfast. So it's very important to have a good culture and to help. And one of the elements of a culture that enables innovation is patience, right? Innovation and entrepreneurship in general, they require patience. You have to be a patient person. I'm not a very patient person. I always remind myself what my mentor always tells me is to trust the process. It takes time. So you need to be patient, and it's just not one of my virtues, but I always constantly trying to remind myself that everything takes time and it just need to be more patient. Trust is a big element. Like in this picture, the gentleman there, like, the used car salesman, probably not someone that you'll trust to do business with, but trust has different dimensions, and it's very important. You need to trust your abilities, your skills, to trust your team, and you trust the process, like I just said. So trust is very, very important to create a culture of trust to help innovation. Next is risk. Obviously, to be innovative, you need to take some risks, right? And the risk, if you have a culture that is risk averse, it's going to stifle your innovation. So you need to have a culture that encourages risk, but at the same time calculated risk. Because if you don't take calculated risk, it's just like take a risk. In general, this would just be foolish, right? You can just jump off a cliff like this gentleman on the screen without, knowing, let's say, how to do it or being a good swimmer and so forth. Right? So you have to take risk, but it's calculated risk. And along those lines, I'm not sure. This is a relatively older movie. Everyone knows Tom Cruise, but this is one of the very, early movies in his career, Risky Business. It's a very entrepreneurial movie that I would highly recommend watching. And it's one of those movies that, he was met with an adverse situation. Ethically, I didn't agree with how he came up with a solution, but it was he had a very innovative movie that I would highly encourage watching. Next is openness. You need to have an open culture to open to new ideas, no suggestions. You can't just have a culture of yes men around you, because this would never help innovation. You just need to be open to positive criticism and, again, feedback from your team and, of course, your customers, right? Next is questioning. You need to be, encourage your team and even yourself to question the status quo and question your assumptions, whatever they are, right? And this is just, I guess I'm going to start to run out of time. I accidentally thought I had an hour, but actually I had less than an hour, so I'll try to go quicker here. But there's just some examples of famous innovators on the screen. Most people don't really know who they are, but there's just examples. And those innovators or entrepreneurs have some common traits. And this is what I would like to share next. First is curiosity. To be an innovator or entrepreneur, you need to be curious. And I just talked about questioning, curious about how things work and how to make them better and improve them, right? Next is to be an innovator. Again, you need to have to challenge the status quo. And challenging the status quo is not easy, because it doesn't always make you the most liked, the most popular person. And to be able to challenge the status quo, you need to do this, with passion. Like this kid, I just call it this kid. It's like, obviously, he's the next rock star, future rock star, right? He's just so passionate about what he's doing, challenging the status quo. And there's another kid, I think, is an entrepreneur. He's not taking no for an answer. He's very passionate about what he's doing. He's just going for it. He's just not taking no for an answer. So, like I said, he just have a entrepreneurial behavior or characteristics here. And this is, what? Think of passion. This is what passion is. Like the gentleman in the picture, he is soccer manager, European manager from Portugal, one of the top soccer managers, and you can tell he just didn't care about his suit or whatever, just so passionate about his team, and obviously they're winning a big game, right? But this is not passion. I just want to show you the contrast. Obviously, you can tell those gentlemen sitting out there, the body language, the way they look on their face, they just don't care. It feels like, I don't want to be there. It's like my boss, or they send me here, but I really am not interested, not engaged enough, right? And next is risk taking. Entrepreneurs or inventors, they have to take risks. Again, calculated risks, because challenging the status quo is a risky endeavor. So you have to take risks, calculated risks with yourself and your team. An easy one to be an inventor. Creativity is very important, right? It comes in different ways. How to create, to be more creative than other people. Next is team building, which is a big one. Again, with very few exceptions, innovation comes, through interdisciplinary teams and groups of people working together. So being able to be a team player and build a good team is very, very important to help innovation. And other traits, I'm just going to go quickly on them. That inventors and entrepreneurs are very determined to be successful. They're motivated, self-motivated. They have strong willpower, and they're resilient, because you're not going to be successful on the first time. Very, very seldom, almost never. So you fail and you learn from failure and get better as you go. So now this is kind of my concluding part, is how to become more innovative. I just wanted to maybe give a quick advice on how to be more innovative, and this book, The Inventor's DNA. There are 5 behaviors of innovators, and I'll just go quickly through each one of them. Again, like I said, I thought I had an hour, so sorry about that, but I will be quick here. So the first skill is questioning, which I talked about. Just have to ask questions and just challenge the status quo. Make sure that you just don't take no for an answer. The best asking questions are kids. Like sometimes we think kids are annoying. They keep asking why, but they're doing the right thing. They're trying to understand what's going on, exploring their surrounding. And if you read the root cause analysis, they always talk about asking 5 whys to be able to get to the root cause of something. And in many cases, you just need to ask why not just why, to get to the root of it and become more innovative. Sometimes a question like what if makes a big difference. Like Steve Jobs was like, what if we can downsize the laptop and its computational power into a smaller size? And guess what? We end up with an iPhone, right? And so forth. This is an interesting book, The Art of Asking Questions. Gives you different ways on how to get better at asking questions. And Peter Drucker also once said that the hard job is not to come up with the right answer. It's just it's coming up with the right question. So asking the right question will probably lead you to the right answer. But it's a challenge, or the tough job is to find the right question to ask. The second skill is being observant, like observing your surrounding and kind of see what's going on. This is a depiction of one of the greatest inventors in history, in our history, Mr. Sir Isaac Newton. And just like he's sitting there one day, heard of the story, and the apple fell down, and he just thought, you know what, why it's falling down instead of going up? And this led him to discover gravity, right? Networking is another skill that is very important for inventors. And it's just like his saying goes along the lines of, it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I would add to this how well you're known by your network as well, because it's very important that people know you and help them, and they help you as well. Next is association, which is putting pieces together, and inventors and entrepreneurs are very good at putting pieces together. And this comes from the fact that our brains are not linear, and unfortunately, as engineers, most of us use the left-hand side, which is more logical. But inventors and entrepreneurs use both sides, logical, and the left and right-hand side, which is more creativity as well. So we need to kind of learn or train ourselves to use both sides. And our brains make connections, that create new connections, like neurons by new networks. That's why it's very important to network and explore within your industry and even outside of your industry, because now it's everything, interdisciplinary is very important. You can just live in a silo. And last skill is experimenting. You just need to try new things and and fail fast. As long as you learn from your failure. Steve Jobs once said, sometimes when you innovate, you make mistakes. It is best to admit them quickly and get on to improve your other innovations, right? So there's nothing wrong with making a mistake or fail, as long as you learn from your failures. And just always remember, done is better than perfect. Engineers, we are perfectionists. We wait. Sometimes good is good enough. You don't have to wait for perfect. So let it go. This great example I always think of is Dropbox. Everyone pretty much knows Dropbox, but not many people know that the first prototype that Dropbox had was a video. So they had their idea out to test their hypothesis and share it with their potential customers, and got the feedback. They didn't wait to have an actual product. They just a video to share the idea. So my concluding statement here is, entrepreneurship, again, Peter Drucker, entrepreneurship is neither a science nor an art. It is a practice. So always remember, there are innovative opportunities or innovation. There's innovation opportunities all around us, and so enjoy the journey and embrace the possibility. And thank you. I think I'm just 2 minutes done. Sorry about that. Thank you. Again, I made a mistake. I thought it was an hour, so I ran out of time. I'm done, and I would love to. If you have any questions for me, I would appreciate it. And I see there's a first question here. What are some good indicators of viable idea for innovation? I'm thinking of some technology that failed as it came out, but became popular later on the AT edition of well received, but not most of us use video calls. Yeah, I mean it's hard. Sometimes you're too early. Like along those lines. I can think of examples like Sony back in the day. Their labs, they had the digital imaging. They developed it, but they decided not to do anything with it because they thought this would hurt their filming business. Back in the Kodak action, sorry, I meant Kodak, not Sony. Kodak moment and taking pictures, right? So they just didn't do anything with it, and it took a few years. I don't know, maybe 10, 20 years, and now everything is digital. Another example is Xerox. They had pretty much the idea of a personal computer back in the day, but they just thought it was not a good idea and they let it go. So it's hard because, again, you're thinking ahead of everybody else, and oftentimes it's too early, and it just takes time. Like one of the examples I just thought of is the Gorilla Glass, which we use for our cell phones nowadays, touch screens kind of thing. I think it was invented in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, or discovered, but they couldn't find any use for it. And they put it off on the shelf until, I guess, Apple iPhone, Steve Jobs came up with the first iPhone, and he came up with the idea of a touch screen And this is when this, oh, we had this invention from, I don't know, 30, 40 years back. We can use it now. So sometimes it's just really hard to, to know, because a good idea, but might be too early, not the right timing. I think this is end of it. There's one more question. I don't know if I can answer that question. Financial needs and budget to start to take the risk. Well, I can't answer this question because this is a personal question, right? What I may consider risky, financial risk, might not be a financial risk for you or somebody else, right? So I guess you'd have to answer those questions for yourself, because again, what is risky for me may not be risky for somebody else. Some people are more open to maybe leverage their assets and take debt. I don't like to take debt myself, it's just me, but businesses, they take debt from a bank and start their own business. So yeah, the minimum budget is, if you're usually, obviously, if you're doing your idea is an app, your budget is very minimal. But if you're building an actual product, it's just would require more funding, more budget, or more capital to implement it. So yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I can't give you a specific answer on that one. Okay, so I think we're over time. I don't know, should we kind of wrap this off, Melody? I'm not sure.
Yes, you've started a vibrant conversation.
Yeah.
And so I will tell my folks today, if you have questions for Nahad, if you want to send them to me at richardson.melody@IEEE.org, I will be more than happy to ask those questions and kind of get those back out to you. So, but I wanted to tell Nahad, thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights on innovation. Your thoughtful perspective and your expertise helped deepen our understanding of the topic. We sincerely appreciate your time and your meaningful contribution.